This video was not sponsored by Square-Enix or any of its affiliates. I love the Final Fantasy series, and Final Fantasy XV is one of my favorite Final Fantasy games. I'm such a huge fan of Final Fantasy XV that I got the Platinum Trophy for the main game, which took well over 100 hours to complete. As a result, I am pretty well versed on the ins and outs of Final Fantasy XV. Knowing that, you can probably imagine my shock when back in August of 2017, Square-Enix announced Final Fantasy XV Pocket Edition, a recreation of Final Fantasy XV to be released on iOS and Android devices. So now that the game is launched, let's find out if Final Fantasy XV Pocket Edition is worth playing. This review and the related footage is based on a full release of the game that I bought and played on my iPhone 8 Plus.
The line of Lucis goes with you. Walk tall, my son.
The original Final Fantasy XV was a huge departure from several of the series' long-standing traditions. While the story hit many of the same beats that were expected of a Final Fantasy game, there were a number of changes to both the content and presentation of the narrative that set 15 apart from other Final Fantasy games. Gone were the days of cutscenes gratuitously filled with so many proper nouns that in-game glossaries and summaries had to be regularly consulted. Instead, Final Fantasy XV retained and featured only the major points that were necessary in understanding the story, trimming away any excess fat in order to offer a more streamlined experience. However, the additive content is still present in the game, and curious players can run off and do side quests, interact with NPCs, and otherwise live in the world of Final Fantasy XV. This allows players to organically uncover the vast and rich tapestry of the planet Eos, its ecology, its history, and its people. Pocket Edition is an abbreviated version of this experience, featuring smaller areas with more linear approaches. The story is broken up into 10 chapters, 5 chapters fewer than the original console game. As a result, Pocket Edition really does only feature the major beats found in the narrative of Noctis and Company. Inessential scenes have been axed in favor of highlighting the key points of the story. While many may decry the lack of exploration in a JRPG, this actually does a ton of favors for the plot. Many important events occur within a relevant time span of other major story moments, which lends extra credence to the characters' struggles. Altogether, the more truncated experience of Pocket Edition makes for a more intense and engaging storyline. That's not to imply Pocket Edition is devoid of all side quests, however. The side quests included with Pocket Edition are simpler than the bounties seen in the console version of 15. Pocket Edition side quests are more about collecting little objects and finding hidden treasures than hunting giant monsters. While they are much more modest than the side quests in the full Final Fantasy XV, Pocket Edition side quests are more in line with the experience at hand. Still, like their console counterparts, the side quests of Pocket Edition are there to help flesh out the in-game world, albeit on a smaller scale. Instead of giving you nation-defining information, the side quest tidbits focus on adding details to locations and individuals. By bringing the bonus items and rewards down to the personal level, Pocket Edition adds to your own investment in the characters. Speaking of characters, Final Fantasy XV's memorable cast of characters return in Pocket Edition, complete with the original voice acting. While many lines of dialogue were obviously cut in order to accommodate the mobile platform, Pocket Edition retains many of the things that gave Final Fantasy XV life, including idle banter between party members and the famous quips that define individual character personas. It's honestly a shock how much of the audio has been preserved in the move to mobile devices. It's not perfect, though. Some lines get repeated rather consistently, and characters interrupt each other quite frequently. Also, at one point in my playthrough, the voiceover was in German for some reason.
Das haben wir im Griff, Leute.
Machen wir es kurz.
I have no idea why this happened, and it quickly rectified itself, but it was still very jarring and took me out of the moment. Songs have taken the biggest hit in the transition to mobile. Many songs from 15 were either cut down into shorter bits or removed entirely. What's present still sounds good, but it really leaves you wanting more, as the music from Final Fantasy XV is just so good. However, if it's your first time playing anything Final Fantasy XV at all, you really won't notice. The graphics have justifiably been downgraded with the move to mobile, and the art style has completely changed as a result of this transition. Understandably, the graphics of Pocket Edition are the biggest point of contention among many people who are on the fence about the game. If you're already not a fan of the graphics, then there's really nothing left to say about them, as they are exactly as they seem throughout the whole game. Every character model, every environment, and every background plate follow this visual style. If you're like me, however, you'll find that the graphics actually add a layer of charm to Pocket Edition. By taking the sometimes overly complex designs of Final Fantasy and simplifying them down to their basest features, Pocket Edition creates a visual presentation that is vibrant and colorful without being covered in the almost prerequisite JRPG belts and frills. The result is a graphical style that is arguably the best visual compromise between a console JRPG and a mobile app. In the options menu, Pocket Edition lets you choose your graphical fidelity, resolution, and frame rate. I didn't mess with the resolution because the game looked and ran fine on each of the highest settings on my iPhone 8 Plus. However, its inclusion is obviously a nice touch for anybody using a mobile device that is older or weaker or simply smaller. On my iPhone 8 Plus, Pocket Edition defaulted the graphics to the high setting. I bumped it up to the highest setting, and with no other adjustments, the game ran with no noticeable issues. As for the frame rate option in Pocket Edition, the game is recommended to run at 30 frames per second. However, there is an option for 60 FPS and a third option for maximum FPS. I dabbled with both these options and found that they both ran great for general exploration, but had some minor stuttering during combat. 60 FPS and maximum FPS had jitteriness when paired with the high and highest graphical setting, and every option of the highest graphics with the higher frame rates actually caused the app to crash. It's possible this was the result of me simultaneously recording the game, but if a phone that's only a few months old can't multitask when running Pocket Edition, that's a pretty big issue. As a side note, my phone never crashed while recording other games that have similar levels of graphical fidelity. At the recommended frame rate, however, everything ran smoothly, sitting at a rock-solid 30 FPS without crashing even once during the entire playthrough. Obviously, anybody who wants to dabble with the visuals, the resolution, and the frame rate can tinker with the settings to get the experience that best suits them. If you want to lower the visual detail and/or screen resolution in order to get the best frame rate, it's right there for you to adjust. It's not perfect, but this level of customizability is really great, and it sets Pocket Edition apart from pretty much every other mobile game that I have seen. This doesn't feel like a game that was stripped down and put on a phone. This feels like a game that was made for the platform, complete with a suite of customizability options. Even the gameplay has been fitted for the platform. The camera takes an overhead point of view, which really helps add clarity to any action you may need to perform. Movement forgoes the mobile tradition of using a digital analog stick or D-pad, and even opts out of the standard drag and move mechanics seen in so many mobile games. Instead, all you have to do is tap on the point you want to move to, or tap and hold in whatever direction you want to go, and Noctis will follow suit. Combat is reformatted for mobile as well. Standard attacks occur automatically, and player input is only required for QuickTime events and item use. Warp attacks also make their grand return, and require player input as well. By tapping and holding on an enemy or an enemy icon if the enemy is off screen, Noctis will warp strike that enemy and then engage it in combat. Meanwhile, your party members act automatically as they do on consoles. It's all very fluid and intelligible. Fonts are big and legible and usually aided by some kind of voiceover. The camera never misses any kind of action since it's overhead. Input prompts are big, bold, and bright, and the presentation is very faithful to the console game's combat. Overall, I'd say this is one of the best gameplay experiences available on iOS. At $19.99, Final Fantasy XV Pocket Edition might be excessively steep for a mobile app. If you don't want to pay $20 outright, you can buy the chapters individually, although this will be more expensive in the long run. By no means is Pocket Edition a perfect game. The super deformed / chibi-esque graphics, the condensed narrative, the edited soundtrack, the imperfect customization options, and most of all, the price point may turn some people off. However, despite its little flaws, Pocket Edition is a game that nearly defies logic. It manages to take a game that is massive in scope and shrink it down into the palm of your hand. It adds features that, to my knowledge, have never been seen before on iOS, allowing you to tinker with and fine-tune the game to your liking. And best of all, it's free to try out, as Chapter 1 is completely free to download, so you can see for yourself if the game is to your liking. Final Fantasy XV Pocket Edition is an amazing technical achievement, an outstanding abridgment of the original title, and an impressive game that is well worth your time, and it earns a 9 out of 10.
This sounds like you're having fun.
Thank you so much for watching. If you want to stay up to date on my content, please subscribe and/or click that little bell icon to receive notifications every time I upload a new video. I have new videos coming out every single month. In the meantime, check out some of my other videos on screen. I recommend the Asai or Tran originals annotated on top. Thanks!